everybody. Hi, everybody. Hey. And welcome to my 11th and last class.
11?
It's chapter 12, because we did combine two chapters. But it is my 11th class, and this is my final class. And Allie's class was only lasted 2 weeks, and her last class was last Tuesday, so it's posted on the website, so you can go and look that up. And Christopher's class starts up Thursday, September 9th, 6:30 to 8:30. So that's the next class starting up after this final one. So thanks all for staying with me. And I think that's it. And for now, I guess we'll start the class. So we're going to do chapter 12, how to demonstrate success. And then at the end, we're going to do a recap of important information. Actually, it's probably about 50-50. And about 60 slides of this. So chapter 12, how to demonstrate success. New Thought, metaphysics, and other various schools of mental science have gained a wide following. It's interesting that he wrote that in his day and age, in the 30s and 40s, because that's also happening now. And those who have practiced the principles they teach have had so many outstanding favorable results that few today deny the possibility of demonstrating some success through the use of mental power. Success, however, implies to various people widely different things. Attainment of success is divided into two sections: ascertaining what the success is that should be desired, and determining how that success can be attained. What is success? That cat's pretty successful. Or those dogs are
Those dogs are formulating what success might be here.
So, in the narrower sense of the word, the realization of any desire may be called a success. But remember, that's a narrow idea. The dictionary definition: the favorable end result of attempts or endeavors, the attainment of wealth, position, honors, or the like. Success, however, can be the gratification of one's immediate desire, but this can be at the expense of one's own future welfare. So, just remember that.
It may not be delayed gratification.
Right, right. Getting everything you want all the time, exactly when you want it, doesn't always mean that you're happy when you get it. In the narrow sense, many people have demonstrated money, have demonstrated a home, have demonstrated marriage, have demonstrated social position, and have demonstrated health through mental means. Concrete results prove the efficiency of methods they have used. The question here is not whether through mental power they've obtained their desires, but whether these realizations, in the broader meaning of the word, have led in the direction of true success, right? So you can have all those things. I actually have a friend who has all those things, and she's not happy right now. And, you know, and I keep telling her, I think your spiritual aspect is missing.
In my humble opinion.
Right. Well, when you have everything that you think you want materially, and you're not happy, there's
something missing.
Exactly. So what is success? And this is Zane's idea. In the wider significance, success is continuous and perfect adaptation of the individual to his or her environment. I have a lot of different, this is Jackson Pollock, this is Mikhail Baryshnikov, this is Jane Goodell. So they're all adapting to their environments here. One definition. This would not be a temporary benefit. It would be the acquirement of something which benefits the individual in one section of man's threefold nature, but without robbing the individual of the benefit of the other two sections of man's threefold nature. So success of adapting to your environment is one area of success, right? Mm-hmm. That's being able to live and survive in the world.
Was that the end of the sentence on the previous slide? I wrote down that continuous and perfect adaptation of the individual to his, and that's where you switch slides.
Okay, I'm sorry. To his or her environment.
That was it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but that's in one area, like this slide says.
That's
in
what
one
you're
area.
pointing
In
out
the
now.
The physical world, yeah. And these next couple of slides I'm demonstrating this is like mental success, physical success, spiritual success.
Yeah, because when I missed that last word, I thought, how would I complete the sentence? And I thought, I suspected it was environment, but then I thought, my path. But, you know, adaptation, perfect adaptation of the individual to his destiny, to his path, you know, his calling or whatever occurred to me.
Yeah. So a person's threefold nature is mental, physical, spiritual. Mental, physical, spiritual. However you define your spiritual, right?
Right.
3 essentials of success.
Did you guys pick up on what that image is?
With the cat.
Yeah, but look at the cat
It's
is.
on top of her.
Cat's demonstrating success.
Kicking in the mountain.
The first essential to success. If a person is to accomplish much, either for oneself or for others, one's body must be in good health and one must have the essentials of life, and even better, to have the comforts of life. Many people, it is true, have not had good health nor the comforts, and yet have made marked contributions to social welfare. But commonly, a person can do better work and more of it with a healthy body, which does not have to combat distress in the environment. And basically saying that in generally, you know, more commonly, you can do better work and more stuff when your body is, you know, you're taking care of yourself and your body's taking care of you. I had one example of, I knew this kid from Eritrea. That was a cutoff from Ethiopia. They had a war back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Anyway, I met him up in Alaska, and he was a very, very skinny kid. And he was telling about his story in Eritrea, and him and a friend went to Egypt because they got free, they could go to college, university, and get all free college. They learned English, but they were starving on the streets. And I couldn't imagine how you can learn higher education, learn a new language when you're constantly starving. It was fascinating, but he did it because he wanted to come to America, and he eventually did.
He had a powerful desire,
Right.
And he probably visualized it very clearly.
Yeah, I mean, he was an interesting kid. But when I met him up in Alaska, we had 3 meals a day. It was all part of, we didn't have to pay for anything. We were doing the fishing thing. And he would go, he would skip meals, and sometimes he would go 2 days without eating. And I asked him why, because he was like this big around. And he said he wanted to remember where he came from, and, you know, that to keep that idea in his head that, you know, just because I'm successful here doesn't mean I can just gorge myself and do all this. You know what I mean? I thought it was
Well, that,
interesting.
yes.
I didn't. Is it okay? Do you think we're good? Ask people if they're hearing me all right, because it's going to take some time and effort if you want me to. I can. Alright, so anyway, let me go to the next slide. Are you on? Oh, you're on me. It's okay, Paul, I got it. I'm gonna put the mic on. So, okay.
You know, they say we'd all be healthier if we underate anyway.
Yeah, that's true, right? Right.
If we did what?
Underate.
If we under, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good rule of thumb. Calories are what kills you.
Right? Killing us, right?
Now, there's a lesson in
It's a
the middle way.
afterthought.
All right. There have been people in the world, many of them, who believe that spiritual success can only be obtained through torturing or ignoring the needs of the physical body. Examples: strict religious types who flail little bodies, early Puritans, groups who starve themselves for certain spiritual reasons. And I wrote that there's a reason for doing this, right? Do we
A reason for doing all, like, flailing
torturing your body for spiritual reasons?
Well, it was considered
Supposedly.
very pious, and you know, that the body was considered to be a problem, you know,
Okay.
for getting to your spiritual nature, which,
Well, what I learned was that that you actually learn how to have mind over body. Like going fasting, doing a fast for however long. You start with a small fast. And go. You're actually, because your body can survive, you're not actually torturing it. But what you learn is how to use your mind to control, bodily impulses that you've gratified it readily. I'm hungry, I eat. Well, in this country we can. But you know what I mean? That's actually one of the reasons. And then the flailing is that, they think they've had sin. But it is also a mental overcoming of the body. It's one of the things that they do. But anyway, I like this little thing. To ensure good health, eat lightly, breathe deeply, live moderately, cultivate cheerfulness, and maintain an interest in life.
Yeah.
I think I can handle that.
Right? And I think this is a key word, moderation.
Moderation.
Everything in moderation, right?
Yeah.
We can do
Even the
everything.
Greeks knew.
Right? Everything in moderation.
What was it? Know thyself was the other. Over the two doorways, there was
Yes.
nothing in excess, and know thyself.
There you go. Exactly. That's what we're learning. To Western occultists, but not too many of mystical turn, where a conflict of interest arose, it were better for those higher in the scale of evolution to survive than those lower, because they can contribute more toward universal welfare. That is, if they were set upon by savages, it were better to fight than merely to turn the other cheek and perish without resistance. Does anybody have a problem with these words? When you asked me last week what I was offended by?
Yeah, right, the savages, right. Well,
I understand it is a cultural thing, and
Well, they exist and have existed.
yeah, but what's our
Well, you
definition
can
of
look
the
at
word?
savages as what they would call the inferior people.
Exactly.
Not necessarily of a certain race or culture or anything, but just lower developed people, and
But
that sort of gets us out of the anthropological
But
problem.
here, I have a problem because he's saying that only people a higher scale of evolution, which who's to judge that,
He has
is
strong
better to
prejudice.
survive
He
because
didn't
they
say
can
people.
Yeah,
contribute
you're right, he
more
does.
universal
He
welfare.
doesn't understand the Eastern spirituality. He's convinced me of that a long time ago.
Would the Western occultists starve themselves?
Not necessarily.
Right, because they can contribute more towards universal welfare. But would the savages more likely be hungry?
And that might be why they're acting savagely.
Right? Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because the last the last slide said that people starve themselves and fast and use mind over matter to deal with the issues in life, the poverty.
Right.
And because they have the issues and they have to fight with that they can't focus on contributing towards universal welfare because they're not Western occultists.
Right.
They're savages that deal with their own problems.
Well, that's my whole thought pattern on this is I think we can't judge who's higher in evolution.
Yeah.
We have to help everyone because there are people who are higher in their spiritual evolution that might contribute a lot to universal welfare, who go on in life and can do that. But we might judge them, and we might not know their inner workings, their inner thoughts, their inner world. So who's to judge that? That's the problem I have with that.
Well, I'm thinking the essential point here is not, I can see where we get all hung up on the words. They are powerful words that stimulate our sensibilities. But I think the point he's trying to make here is that I think he's talking about this notion of turning the other cheek, and that may not always be how we survive.
But that's not going to be no matter who's coming on.
Yeah.
A white person that comes with your gun, you're gonna fight anyway.
Well,
You're gonna fight if it's savage. You're gonna fight who's ever, right? You're not gonna judge us for this guy's higher in evolution. Now he just
that's
turned
not
the
what
cheek.
it meant.
You know what I mean?
Now you can miss the point.
I think
Okay, the point is, no matter who it is, unfortunately he used a term that was culturally popular then.
Right.
He didn't mean only
I know,
savages.
I know, because
Yeah,
I studied anthropology.
And I also
I
think,
understand.
Let's take an
Would
example.
you complete your sentence, Paul?
Huh?
Would you complete your sentence? What were you saying?
He's using savages as an unfortunate example, but it could be anyone. If another country turns on you, do you fight or do you let them take you over? That's the point.
It could be
You
anybody.
gotta not lose sight of the point.
And that's why I
because
put
of
this
the-
in there.
Because of the
I could have just not put
the-
this second sentence. And
politically
but I
incorrect word.
decided to.
It could be anybody. Savages could be anybody put down by despotism of people who feel that they are more interdependent because they can contribute more to universal welfare because they didn't starve themselves.
It could be that. I think he's just
Yeah.
saying that sometimes being spiritual means that you do things that don't appear spiritual. You call upon your aggressive nature to protect yourself or those that you love or whatever.
I like the way you
I
put
agree.
that, Vicki. Because
The other thing you
that
gotta
helps.
remember is that, there was the thought that there were some cultures that were more evolved than other cultures.
And they would turn the other cheek.
No, we're talking about the word savages.
Oh,
All right.
I
I'm
don't,
talking about the
I
word
understand
savages, that there were some cultures that were more evolved than other cultures. In fact, and I don't know if it's true, but there's the concept of the whole Western and Eastern thing.
Yeah.
They have cycles.
Right.
Western culture has an up cycle and down cycle. Eastern culture has an up cycle and a down cycle.
Yes. Wellington.
2 points.
Okay.
The second sentence there is merely an example. You could make 1,000 examples. What's
Yeah.
pertinent here is the previous statement.
That's
All
what
right.
I thought.
And throw humans completely out of the equation, and he still described the very essence of nature.
It is better for those in higher scale of evolution to survive than those lower, even if it's in the animal world.
If they're extinct,
lion
their
should
soul's
survive.
mission on this planet is gone.
Sort of a restatement of Darwin in that sense.
Exactly.
Right.
Because they can contribute more toward universal welfare.
They got better genes.
I think they're all equal. What I actually wanted,
Yeah, they
my
are.
point, whole
Well,
thing,
they have the
is
potential
I
to
believe all people are equal, and we should not judge who's higher on the scale of evolution, in what capacity. People that work out all the time and think the body is important would judge somebody with a higher body potential as higher in evolution. You know? It's who's judging. And I think of back when in 11th grade we were taught this scenario where everybody's on an island. Who do you throw off, or who do you save and who do you not, based on what you need for your group. And I've come to the understanding that everybody, we should judge them equally, because everybody's going to judge people in different capacities. Oh, that person is higher intellectually, we should take him. That person has a better body mass, we should take him. That person is higher in the spiritual evolution, but he can't lift a finger. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's hard to judge, and that's what I brought it up, and that's why I did, and I knew it was going to be controversial, but I did it anyway, because I think we should all understand equal is equal, and judging somebody on higher evolution
Are you
is hard to do.
suggesting
not
that
be-
he's passing judgment on?
Because evolution to survive than those on the lower,
Yeah.
because they can contribute. He's saying it because he has a higher thought. He wants everybody to contribute their utmost to universal welfare, and he's saying people in a higher evolution will do that.
But one controversy is that the savages, as so named by the people who can contribute to universal welfare, cannot. And
Yeah.
that's not true.
Right,
They
exactly.
can't.
Impoverished and the-
Exactly. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
now, are you sure, what's the context that this came from? Was he talking about humans only, or is it the
Yeah.
whole scale of
It's a
animals
Western
and everything
occult.
else?
Well, yeah, I think because he's saying on the
No, because
higher
some
evolution.
people are.
Well, he says those. He doesn't say people.
Yeah,
It's
how do you
those.
know
It's-
he means people?
If you know what, even if you look at just the animal realm, what animal is higher on the evolution, and what animal can contribute more to the planet Earth than any other animal, right? All
Yeah.
animals are equal. The bug is equal to
No,
the
no,
no.
without insects. You know what?
Animals-
We'd be in a sorry state.
There's a
We should
difference
have
have more
equal
control over the environment.
in
and
evolution in
contribute more.
animals.
Well, this is the difference.
Bacteria are not as highly evolved as.
Do you know how
a
useful
dolphin.
bacteria are?
Some
Without
are, yeah,
bacteria,
some
oh my
aren't.
God, this world
Some
would be
aren't.
overrun with so much garbage.
This is
Yvette,
two
well, wait a minute, Yvette, you're
equal
missing the
arguments,
point.
you know?
This
Okay, well-
this subject is
They're
initially
not
the
as
soul
evolved.
issue.
Well,
There's
it's
way
a-
more to
It's
it.
a hierarchy
So, but
thinking
this is
versus
exactly
an
my point.
interconnectedness
I think
thinking.
Laura understands. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or?
I hope so.
Okay, am I making any sense? Or
No,
Well, yeah,
because,
Yeah.
there's two
no,
ways.
there's
We
an
have to-
evolution of life. And in fact, life has evolved on the planet.
yeah,
Okay, and so humans are higher in the evolutionary chain than lower animals.
but you know how much
we
important
started
they
out
are.
with single cell, and then we got multiple cell, and then it evolved
So,
from that.
okay,
Okay.
so, you know,
So that's-
then are you
I'm
going to
just saying
equate
they're all
more
important.
evolved with better and more important? Or are you
Right.
going to acknowledge that every niche along the way is absolutely essential in the interconnectedness of
Well,
all
they're
things?
both right.
It's a
Or
mission
I
of
would argue
celebration.
that.
due to power
I
and
agree with
Right,
ability
so
to
that's what-
destroy.
that's- these are
They're
the
both
two-
correct.
Yes, they are, and we have to marry these and accept the sort of paradox inherent in them in order to get on with the conversation.
Right, but also, you know, it has to do with whether, you know, for example, vegetarianism.
Yeah, okay, there
Okay.
are lots of arguments can be supported by these different
And you
leanings.
can say that the
Right.
vegans are
Right.
savages that can't contribute to society.
All right. Well, so I brought that up, and I had a feeling there was going to be discussion.
The author is
I think
slightly
we all
presumptuous.
discussed.
A rich
How's that?
discussion.
I think we all discussed, and we all had our
Can,
points.
can we
Yeah.
say that the author is slightly presumptuous?
I think it was part of his culture, and you know, I don't blame him. It's we all have these things. I wanted to
It's
point it
very-
out to bring up the conversation so that we all start thinking about these things.
Right, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so the second essential of success. Yet probably the majority of people pay so much attention to their physical welfare that they ignore the other two elements making for real success in life. Those who devote themselves exclusively to making money miss the best of living. So true. The man who does nothing to benefit others outside his family is spiritually still on the level of brutes. Again, a problem with this.
The brutes.
No, does anybody else have a problem with the sentence?
There is something that some great dictators said about those who struggled their whole life and then made it successful, that they care nothing for the people who struggle under them, the people in poverty.
Okay.
And that plays itself out in history
Yeah.
and is liable to happen again.
No, it's true, but maybe that's how Zane was meaning this. But some people only have the capacity, and if at least they're helping their family, and that's all their life is they work hard, they make very little money, and they're just helping their family. Then how can we say that they're on the level with Bruce? Maybe he was
It's a
thinking
vibratory level.
we
is
should
what he's
help
referring
others,
to.
but you know.
Well, I think
Well, it
it's,
doesn't-
yeah,
it doesn't
again,
seem
it's
like
an
it.
unfortunate
Not
word,
in
but I,
today's-
I'm sorry.
Well, they consume more. They go to Walmart with their family.
Well, we don't know. Everybody's different, right?
Well, that's
think-
well.
Wow.
You would say like that. A statistic is that's what people normally do. But individual is individual. I mean,
Right.
you can have.
I think if you look to the sentence ahead of it, which says he makes exclusively making money,
Right, misconnectedly.
and then to do nothing but to benefit his family,
Okay, all right.
then he is not using that money spiritually for others.
Right, okay.
So he is on the level of a brute.
I understand what you're
Right.
saying.
And I think he's always, he's
The wealthiness.
he's
So you can't
understanding that
separate those two.
evolution of consciousness evolves becoming more and more universal, along
Universal.
wider and wider and more
And,
inclusive
and that I think is
perspective.
the point that's,
Right.
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
trying
I
to be
mean,
made.
Okay.
I think anthropologists would agree that some cultures were more brutish than others.
Yeah.
Maybe
Klingon.
Their clan, their tribe,
You
their
know,
whatever.
maybe
that-
groups can be compared to
And you can tell
conformists.
by what they do and what comes out, what the
Right.
culture produces.
Right.
I guess I'm looking at things, everything in duality, and when I read a sentence, I'm thinking of the opposite. Maybe that's just my contrary nature to think of the opposite. But you're
makes
right.
you a
You're right
penetrating
that
thinker.
if you're including it because it did come with the sentence,
Right.
you know, and I can think of very wealthy families who only help their family, and they're very wealthy,
Right.
and they don't think to beyond themselves and their family to help,
Mhm.
even though they are very capable
That's-
of doing so.
yeah.
And maybe that's what he's meaning.
Gates and
Yeah.
them just this year had 40 very rich people promise to give half their wealth away to good
Yeah.
causes,
Yeah.
rather than just keeping it to themselves.
Right, and according to
Yeah.
C.C. Zane, that would be a spiritual act.
Right,
And
right.
I think that is very.
And I think
Yeah.
he tries to, I think throughout, there's a theme that runs throughout all the Brotherhood of Light lessons, which is that we begin by first taking care of ourselves.
Right, you're right.
Then
You have to.
we grow ourselves spiritually by learning to take care of our family, however we define family. And then once we gain that experience of being outside self, caring for others, then all of a sudden you look around the world and you see, wow, there's this big world out
Bigger
there that
world.
needs to be taken care of. And I
Universal
think that's the point he's driving at.
Right.
If
You're
you were read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, there's
Stephen Covey?
independence
Yeah.
and then interdependence, where you can actually contribute. But in order to reach independence, it would be a major strive for a lot of people
Yeah.
to be financially independent.
It's true, right? And we don't want to be on the opposite where we're always we can't even take care of ourselves and somebody's always having to take care of us. You know, we want to be able to first, be able to take
But,
care of
there
ourselves
are
so that we
problems.
can help others.
There are people who find themselves in those situations.
Well, no, I'm not
often they're
saying in
challenged.
general.
And there's
right.
huge spiritual lessons involved in that as well, so.
That's true. You're
There's
right.
the
I'm
whole
making a
array.
judgment.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So then there are others who make a decidedly mental success who are physical failures and perhaps even spiritual failures. Yet to a degree, most of us succeed in being physically a success. We live the allotted span of years without too much ill health that would prevent some accomplishment. 14. Okay. Francis Bacon, for instance. Oh, this is in Zane's book. It's one little paragraph. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
It kind of goes along with this sentence here. Francis Bacon, for instance, was always in debt and often in serious trouble over financial matters. Yet he was intellectually and spiritually a success. He gave the world the product of his mighty intellect, and because he did it in a measure to assist in human progress, in that measure he was also spiritually successful. Henry David Thoreau, American author and philosopher, also was able to solve 2 of man's essentials to complete success, but unable to solve the third, which in turn detracted from the possible value of the other 2. He was a great man spiritually, and his writing proclaimed him a great intellect, but his abject poverty led to hardships of which he prematurely died, leaving the world vastly poorer than otherwise it would have been. So there's the case where maybe that's how he learned, was to be physically in abject poverty, and maybe that's why he became an intellectual and spiritual success, like your point, right? Because maybe that's some people learn in different ways, right?
Right. Well, and coming back to your point, we can't really judge,
Right.
but we can look at those as examples to stimulate our thinking about how we want to be in the world. You
Right.
know, what if I do this, I'm likely to end up, in great poverty.
So
Is that
that's-
something I can live with?
That's one way of contributing, someone who stays on the poverty level but contributes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Paul, was there something somebody wanted to say on there?
Oh, well, I think we're way past that. Alice Marie said, wasn't this written in the age of colonialism? They saw practically everyone being colonized as savages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It's very
Anthropology
dated.
did call
Right.
on that
Right.
in the early stages of anthropology.
Well, and it was also the time of
Yeah.
the guy who swung through the jungle.
Tarzan?
Tarzan, there were savages out there.
Right. And that was just a word, right? Let's say, so
But what we have to be careful of is the Western world dubbed, for instance, the Moors and the Islamic
yeah.
invaders
Oh,
as
yeah.
brutes when they came in with this incredible culture and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
right.
So, yeah, we have to be
Right,
careful
the
about
Europeans
judging
had
that.
the British culture then.
Right.
It was the Dark Ages,
It's all in the conquering.
shortly thereafter.
But during these years, few of us make the gains either in mental attainment or in spirituality that lies within the compass of our inherent energies. If we neglect spirituality but goad ourselves into it, we can, with little effort, adjust ourselves so as to gain both intellectual and physical success. So I had to rewrite this sentence to even understand what he was saying. But I think he's saying that even if we have physical and intellectual success, what I said with my friend, we're missing a component. We often find we are. Not that I'm judging that, but there's something missing, and we often find that that's part of what we're missing.
It's interesting you chose the verb goad.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean,
The way he wrote that sentence, I still don't know if I rewrote it correctly. So.
well, I think it says what you wanted.
Yes.
What things could an affluent person seek out to replace that lack of spirituality?
Oh,
did
yoga
you say?
spas, and I can give you a long list.
Or they could take the path of Bill and Melinda Gates.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Others.
Yeah, I think.
Or even our
helping
president
others-
worked in the soup kitchen during Thanksgiving, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and even Zane said that in the last thing. I think he said that when we start getting in our own heads too much and we start thinking, about ourselves. I mean, we normal, and then we get beyond that where it's too much. We're thinking about ourselves too much. He says the best thing to do is go out and help somebody else, and it gets you out of your own head. It's a spiritual aspect. And you find out that how wonderful it feels to actually do something for somebody else without being paid for it for no other reason than you're trying to help somebody else. And to me, that's what spirituality is, that feeling. That's what we're missing often. And we forget about it until we have to go to ourselves to go out and do it.
Yeah.
But then when we do it, we're like, oh wow, this is kind of cool.
This is not
This
bad.
is amazing. And it gets you out of your own head and it starts you thinking in the bigger world.
Right.
Bravo, Yvette.
So that's something we can do, to help spirituality. In other words, and this is my words, the 3 essentials of success are when we are successful physically, mentally, and spiritually, and do not neglect one area or overcompensate in one area so you can forget about another. So we don't want to do that. So
we
those
should try and be balanced.
3 essentials of success, balancing all. Study and thought will sharpen the intellectual powers, but there are always loopholes in the laws of the land that a clever man can crawl through to get the best of his fellows.
Boy, sounds
Do
like
we know about
Congress.
that?
The use of mental force to take from others what one desires is one method of intellectual powers becoming increasingly prevalent with the broadening knowledge of psychology.
Oh, yes.
But he does say, even though the sentence doesn't seem like it, he's saying that this is not the way to go.
No,
But he's
no.
noticing that people are doing it with more knowledge that we're
Well, if he
having.
was ever alive now and saw what they do to us now, wow.
But that's how interesting it is that it was kind of going on in his time.
Well,
Because
yeah.
he's talking about it.
I think this has gone on from the beginning
Right,
of human beings.
That's what I'm starting to realize, and it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's not just our time.
Just because our technology has changed and we don't have to go to the well to get the water doesn't mean everything else has changed.
Right. Human beings are still human beings.
Yeah, it's fascinating. This principle of using cunning to get what you want is as old as man itself,
There you go.
but it is only that the method has now sadly become more refined.
Right.
In these instances, there was a clever appeal to person's desires. Oh, I was going to read you this again from the book, His Examples. Jacob procured the birthright of Esau for a mess of pottage through intellectual cleverness.
For a what?
Mess of pottage. That's a bowl of soup.
So pottage means worthless items.
Oh.
Using psychology to sell things to get what they want?
Yeah.
Aren't there other examples besides selling things?
Oh, there's all kinds of examples. Worthless mining stocks and oil stocks have been sold to widows and orphans. How can people actually do that with a conscience? Poor people,
Yeah,
they're selling them worthless
Well,
things.
what's the most famous one that we know of?
The island
today?
of Manhattan.
Bernie Madoff.
Yeah.
Oh, Bernie Madoff, right?
I mean,
He was stealing
Exactly.
from the rich, though.
Well, what about taking
Well,
those
no, he stole
subprime
from the
loans
poor.
and put them all together?
the
rich
very,
and-
just regular
people
folk
like that.
invested with him, small foundations invested
Right.
all their money with him.
Right.
And,
I wasn't trying to excuse him, by the
no,
way.
okay.
But I want to point out what you were pointing out. I mean, I hear your point. Do you want to finish it?
No, I'm-
Okay, because I think I'm with you and probably the audience.
What about the subprime loans that the banks took?
Right.
and put them
Yeah,
all
yeah,
together
yeah,
and
meant to
chopped them up in
impoverish.
pieces and
Yeah.
sold them and then
Right.
blew us all to
Right.
Yeah, and
Blew our
it's sold
economy.
to
Yeah.
the poor blacks and Latinos
Yeah.
proportionately, yes.
Are-
What I want to point out here is this, again, kind of elitist attitude of assuming that we are now more intelligent and more refined than the people who came before. Because when you look back in history or when you read Shakespeare, they had every bit as clever shysters going on back then as anything we see, any refinement we see now. So
Exactly.
I don't think we can take that cocky attitude necessarily.
He's
I
saying
think in a
because
lot
now
of
we're
ways
learning
we're grosser
psychology.
now.
Yeah, because now we're learning psychology in the general, in America, I'd have to say.
Well, the tools of technology,
that's-
though, have expanded the
Right.
Yeah, but
capability
he's
to take
talking
advantage
about
of people.
cunning.
Mental cunning.
Oh, no, I didn't,
Yeah.
well, I see, he says
This was
method.
from before.
He says method.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
The use of cunning.
I was assuming we were
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about the intellectual powers.
Tony had something
That
else
is.
to say.
Yes.
It is using intellectual power.
Right, but he says the method has now sadly
Right.
become more refined.
Well, we've named the negative psychology or the passive aggression of the situation, but it's been going along through the ages, like you
Well,
said.
that's what he said. From Jacob in the Bible times to the island of Manhattan was secured from Indians for a few trinkets.
Yeah, tricksters.
Yeah,
all along the
and that's
way.
happened all
But that's
along
in
the way.
selling
But the scale
And
now
selling
is
things.
considerably
It can
larger.
be.
Aren't
Yeah.
there other uses to use psychology to get what you want besides having to sell something?
Yes.
Sure, taking
Exactly.
advantage of people for
Taking
what
advantage
to
Manipulating
something
people.
from them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Whatever.
banks giving a subprime loan to somebody without asking what their income is and so forth,
Right.
knowing they were never gonna pay for the house, but getting whatever they could.
Well, that's
And then making bets that they wouldn't be able to pay for it.
Right.
But there are
right,
people out there who
so-
take advantage of just psychological advantage of others.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
there's people
any
who don't
form
know
of
any other
fashion.
way.
like
right?
in other cultures. And other-
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And we
Are
could
we
go,
gonna
if we
get
could go to
around?
a foreign country and we could get blown over too because we might not know the cultural ins and outs of that country. And there are
That's
people out there
And they take
willing to take
advantage
advantage
of
you.
our nativity.
So it's just the individual and what their scruples
Not
are.
just cultures, but microcultures and groups and different
Yeah.
kinds of people that hang around together, like in mixed cultures. The same thing.
Yeah.
You'll meet someone who's manipulative, who uses psychology to get what they want,
Exactly.
and you would call that person a vampire, and you would
And you'd probably be right in doing that.
So hindrances to success, but from the standpoint of spiritual success, although not so considered in civil law, it is as much a crime to take unfairly from another through mental processes as it is to take the same from him at the point of a gun. And he says this, that it's not considered in civil law, this would be criminal, but he's saying that it is just as criminal, he believes, it's another type.
Well, it has the same impact on your soul.
Right, and I think that's what it is. In
People
other-
actually use guns for lack of significance.
That's right. It's true. Absolutely. So, in other words, unfair trading practices or taking from another through mental cunning creates a hindrance to spiritual success, even if it is done with another's uninformed consent or is legal to do so.
It's like
This is kind of my
karma
wording.
creating.
Yeah,
It's karma creating.
Exactly. And whether you realize it or not, you're going to eventually realize it.
That's the nature of karma.
Wealth comes from industry and the hard work of human toil. When an individual takes wealth from society, that is, by acquiring it from another person or persons, she should be prepared to recompense society by returning wealth to it in some other form. And I put in Paris Hilton as heiress, and then
Why did you
John D.
pick her?
Rockefeller. Well, this is, in my opinion, this was a bad example. I don't know what she's given back. Maybe she's been in a movie and she's famous.
She did the
But what is she given
Simple
back?
Life,
And she's
the
very, very
TV
wealthy.
series.
What did you say?
The Simple Life. She
Yeah,
went on the road,
right? She's on TV.
Gave money to different people.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, went to jail.
Went to jail.
I mean, it's not what I would have done, but
She
that's
was
what
just
did.
arrested this weekend,
Oh, yeah?
also in Las Vegas, for cocaine possession.
I don't dislike Paris Hilton. You
No,
know,
I'm just saying this is an
She just does
example.
what she does. She just doesn't.
She's not,
She
She
could
may
have
not be very
she could have
dull.
saved a Russian-Ukrainian prostitution, child prostitution, or something like that.
Yeah.
She could have done that with her money, you know,
Right.
like say brought them over to America or something. But she didn't. she gave her money away to people on the road in America.
Well, I mean,
US,
that's
United
okay
States.
too. I mean, we can't judge her on that. But I'm just saying, like, in general, like what Gates is doing, right?
Right.
He's making a wealth.
Organized
He's
effort.
making huge wealth.
She-
And he
He
gives
did
a
the same
lot of
thing.
it
Bill
too.
Gates-
And that's what Zane is saying, that
Bill Gates should save children from child prostitution with his money.
So did you pick Rockefeller because he was a good example of someone who gave back?
Well, he did. Not that I would say that. You know, I have my own opinion.
I don't
on this,
agree with
but
a lot of foundations.
didn't he make the Rockefeller Foundation? Did he make
Yeah.
universities?
Right.
Well, Rockefeller,
Carnegie Mellon and
Vanderbilt,
all this other
Rockefeller,
stuff.
that was all
Rockefeller
work.
Center, and you know, so
Oh yeah, sure.
but the idea is in this example that huge wealth, because you're making your huge wealth on the masses of people, they can't make it without the masses of people buying the product or using their services.
Yeah.
So on the backs of people who are making this money for them, they were the business people who, you know, organized it.
Yeah.
But they should give back. That's what
they
Zane
should.
is saying.
Right.
Like 70% of the time, money's not used for the right thing.
Right, but what Rockefeller did from industry and hard work make his money. Paris Hilton only inherited it.
Exactly.
She's a little more
Sure.
hedonistic, I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
And
needs
that's,
more education.
and that's the
Example of that.
example I wanted to show that, you know, as we're going along. But this guy, does everybody know who this guy is?
Is it Carnegie? Oh,
Nobel.
no, Nobel.
Nobel. So those individuals, therefore, who acquire mental power and cleverness, yet use these not to discover some superior method of living or of production and distribution, not in invention, not in better organization, and not in anything else through which society has benefited, but use their abilities to take from society what members of society have produced, or hoard and maintain wealth inherited from ancestors, without themselves making some adequate contribution to the welfare of the whole, are successful in only two essentials. They have acquired mental and physical success for our living in abject spiritual poverty. And I have what Alfred Nobel did. I don't know if you guys want to hear it.
Yeah.
About Alfred Nobel. This is from Wikipedia. Alfred Nobel was born in 1833 in Stockholm to a family of engineers. He was a chemist, an engineer, and inventor. In 1895, Nobel purchased an iron and steel mill, which he converted into a major armaments manufacturer. Nobel amassed a fortune during his lifetime, most of it from his 355 inventions, of which dynamite is the most famous. In 1888, Alfred had the unpleasant surprise of reading his own obituary titled "The Merchant of Death is Dead" in a French newspaper. As it was Alfred's brother, Ludwig, who had died, the obituary was 8 years premature. Alfred was disappointed with what he read and concerned and how he would be remembered. This inspired him to change his will. In December of 1896, Alfred Nobel died at the age of 63 from cerebral hemorrhage. To the surprise of many, Nobel's last will requested that his fortune be used to create a series of prizes for those who confer the greatest benefit on mankind in physics, chemistry, peace, physiology, or medicine and literature. Nobel bequeathed 94% of his total assets, which today is equal to $186 million, to establish the 5 Nobel Prizes.
Very
That was
interesting.
Right.
It's like the hymn Amazing Grace was written by a slave trader who was abusing terribly and torturing the slaves as they, crossed the oceans in their boats. And he had, after this terrible storm through which they just barely came, he had this epiphany that he had to turn his life around, and that's the wretch like me, who saved
yeah.
the wretch like me. It was a complete revelation and turnaround of his life.
See, and that's what the thing about it is, we never know when people can change in their lives and do universal welfare benefits.
Grace.
And that's why we shouldn't
Amazing
judge,
grace.
because we never know
Yeah.
when the person, at what point in their life, they might do wonderful things. Nobel Prize, that's well known, very famous,
Very
right?
interesting.
And he turned,
It's not just a,
yeah.
it's not just a contribution, it's making sure that the contribution is used effectively
Yeah.
to make a positive change in the world.
Exactly.
Right.
People, right.
Exactly.
Right.
All right, so the 3 essentials of success. This means that for such complete success in which all 3 essentials are met, discrimination must be exercised not to give undue weight to one factor at the expense of the others. And I use this funny as, here's a fitness club. I canceled my membership They keep withdrawing money. So I've lost 15 pounds so far fighting them in court. Because he's still going and using the services as they keep taking his money. I mean, that's a way to lose weight. Do you see this?
Yeah,
He's on the door. Success in attaining any single objective. Just be careful
It's
with your first
risky,
step.
Is that Kevin there?
No, he's on the doorbell.
Good job.
But he's getting ready to like
Looks like
pounce on this
both my
balloon.
paws
Are these are your photos?
No, I got these all from the web.
Oh.
Nothing is for me. Nothing is original.
The way you're using them is really
Yeah.
Objective of success. When it is decided that a particular condition is beneficial to universal welfare and is something to be desired and striven for, the first step in demonstrating it is to have a definite and clear conception of just what it is that is wanted. The clear visualization of something, or holding it clearly in the thought, is called its formulation. If the formulation of an idea or thought is not definite and clear, then the results are likely to be indefinite and indecisive also, because the energies tend to fill in whatever is held thus before the attention. So if you got scattered energies, that's the result, scattered energies.
So this is the Magus, Mercury, right?
Yeah.
A clear formulation.
Clear formulation of what it is.
Isn't
what you
that
decide.
part of what you taught in Catholic school as part of model sin? You first have to formulate the idea in your head first.
That's right. And mortal sin was a serious business.
That's right. You had to think about it first.
Before you did it. That's
Before
right.
you did it. That had to be part of
Well,
it.
that's exactly what it says here.
Mhm.
It should be realized that on the astral plane, work is accomplished not through physical or chemical processes, but through the power of thought. So you have to think of it first. When an image, therefore, is held before the attention and desire energy diverted into it, that condition is actually constructed upon the astral plane and has a real existence there. But just because a thing has an existence on the astral plane does not signify that it will also become a physical reality.
Right.
There it is.
Because the mortal sin didn't get committed until
There
you
you
actually
go.
did it.
You have to take action.
So I thought you sinned because you thought it.
No, just because you thought it was not a sin. And just because you desired and wanted it was not the
Then
sin.
Jimmy Carter
It was
got
the actual
wrongfully,
action
aligned.
that
There
actually
you go.
causes the sin.
Okay, so I just want to let you know we're on slide 27 and I got 107.
Oh.
And we're 45 minutes in, so
Oh, okay.
I might have to
Be
get through
quiet.
a few a little.
Right.
I mean, I love discussion and, you know,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I got to
Well,
get
you
through
just
them.
have to do another class, Yvette.
Yeah. Okay, so once a thought or idea is formulated, whether it becomes a reality or not depends upon two things. Number one, the amount of energy that is diverted into the astral pattern, and I wrote the idea or thought is the astral pattern, and the resistance offered by the physical environment to being manipulated to fit this particular pattern. Here's the resistance. So attention, intent, energy. The object, therefore, is to use suggestion efficiently and present the image to the unconscious mind in such a way as to divert as much of the desire energy into the thought cells so that they will set about bringing to pass that which is to be demonstrated through mental power. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast?
No.
To bring a given thing to pass, certain changes in the attitude of individuals must occur. It says, I can change. Also, certain changes in the abilities of one demonstrating, or certain changes where physical conditions are concerned, must also take place. So, I think this is a big, huge, it's huge for success in anything. Your attitude of success. I mean, your attitude about lots of things will either get you to success or not. And some people reach success, but they don't believe so, and their attitude is they'll never be successful, and so they never will reach it, even though most people would think they are successful, you know, in certain areas.
What if people don't think they're successful?
Well, then they aren't.
Well, they're sad. They're sad.
Yeah.
They're unhappy.
Right.
So would you go back just for a second?
Sure.
Because it's this second point I find really important too.
Certain changes in the abilities of the one demonstrating, this is demonstrating success, trying to get
Right.
success, or certain changes where physical conditions are concerned must also take place. Are you talking about that?
Yeah, because often we assume it's just enough to say our affirmations and
know.
improve our attitude, but it's
Those
where are
work.
my abilities lacking and what has to happen in my space or circumstances to
This is
be
the Virgo.
conducive to having this.
This is the
This is
second
here.
stage of magic, and it's the Virgo. If you're looking at the tarot, Arcanum 1 is the first stage, which is the formulation. And the second stage is the work. What do you have to do to cultivate the environment? What do you have to do to cultivate your own
Right here.
thinking?
The
What
resistance
resistances do you have
by
to
the environment.
give up in your own thinking in order to get there?
Right.
And so that would be which arcana?
Arcanum 2.
2 would be the
The Virgo
Virgo.
card.
Okay.
So it's the environment will cause things to happen. So that is, changes must be made if the thing desired is to be demonstrated. Whether the changes are in oneself, such as developing specific abilities, or are in adjustments of the physical environment, such as a resistance from other people involved. See, you're working for success, but you got people like So, in other words, you're trying to demonstrate success, but people, I think physical environment can be anything, but it also can be the people around you. And we all have people around us that feels like a hindrance. Maybe they're helping you without knowing it.
But you have to analyze the environment. Sort it out.
Exactly. There is a direct relation between the amount of energy which the individual can divert into the mental image of that which he is demonstrating and what he can accomplish with such energy. One might try to demonstrate a condition and have a tremendous supply of desire energy within the unconscious mind to release into it, and yet fail because the resistance of the environment is too great. Again, I think he's just rewording the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The environment is in all kinds of capacities, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that environment would include the times that we're in as well.
It could.
Oh,
Your
absolutely.
culture,
Yeah.
the people that are around you, your
Right.
family you grew up in, that's all that part of your culture.
Your own mental
Even the
environment.
astrological set of the time.
Exactly.
How could we arm ourselves to adapt to the environment so that we can be more successful?
Well, that's like taking care of your body physically. That way you can think mentally better and you can cope with the environment better is number one. And then using, gaining more knowledge about the environment that you're surrounded in, maybe the people that are around you, kind of either learning to understand them or learning how to remove them from your life if they're bringing you down and it's just not working, you know. It's learning about your environment, and I think that will help to get more successful in your life. You agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's that Virgo analysis.
Yeah.
I like that idea about removing people
If
from your life.
necessary.
You can't remove them, but you have to remove yourself
Right.
Sometimes,
from
that's true.
that
That's
bad influence or whatever.
Exactly.
What about organizing? You think organizing would be...
Yeah, if you got some Saturn prominent in your chart, organizing is great. I find a wonderful release in organizing.
I wish I did.
I see books in the bookstore and I start, going with the author's last name. No, this book doesn't go here.
Yeah, I do that
Like,
too.
wait a minute, I don't work here.
Oh, you didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Mercury.
Oh, okay.
Developing the
wonderful.
effective mental energy.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
I'll take him.
Picture of Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Hermes, Mercury.
Mhm.
Mercury was Roman, Hermes was Greek, right? The Greek god. Effective mental energy. The best manner to vitalize a mental image is not only to concentrate the thoughts of the objective consciousness upon the image, but one must link up the desire energy to the image, and also one must gain the full attention of the unconscious mind to have success in bringing the image to pass. So there's three things here. Actually, when I recap all the previous chapters, I go into a little bit about this if you weren't here from before. But objective consciousness is like your regular conscious mind and your unconscious. So not only are you using your objective consciousness and then your desire energy, which is your energy behind your desiring this, but then you have to link up with your unconscious. So there's a third factor that'll help bring things to pass.
Right.
Suggestion and affirmation are useful tools to bring the image to the attention of the unconscious mind. And these useful tools must be applied in a manner that does not bring up negative desires and autosuggestions, as explained in earlier chapters. We went through that whole thing of negative desires.
Yeah, so just don't think that you can tell yourself something negative and can control it and you'll be immune from it.
Right.
Don't like tell yourself because it's bad Pavlov.
Yeah, I think Vicky had this great example. Can we use your example again about the bike riding and the path?
Oh,
Can we use that again?
yeah.
It just sticks in my mind. So Vicky would bike ride along this little part.
The irrigation canals.
Irrigation
ditches, and
canals.
there's these little narrow paths.
Narrow pass, and she did it like whipping through there like nobody's business. Like it was all good until one time she fell. And then the next time she's bike riding, she's like, oh my God, I'm going to fall. Oh my God, I'm going to fall. I'm going to fall. That's a negative desire.
Yeah,
Because there's energy behind it from an experience. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to do that because if you keep saying that, then you're going to again. So that's where negative desire comes in. So you don't want that. So you have to. So what did you do, Vicky?
well, so now I have to just, when I go, and it's still there for me because I haven't done it a whole lot since then, but I just start picturing myself, I see that little path in front of me and just sort of rolling merrily along.
So you visualize the success and not
And I don't go to and the other stuff is there.
Right.
I just have to work hard to keep that positive image in front of me.
positive, and
Well,
that's
there's also
helps you
a
in
technique
success.
when we're doing affirmations. You covered this once, Will, where we write down the positive statement, and then on the other side of the page, we'll write down whatever first thoughts
Yes.
of objections come up.
That's great.
You know, and just to get in touch with what our knee-jerk, resistances are and bring them to consciousness,
Right.
that is an incredibly useful tool.
That was in one of these
Yeah, I
chapters.
agree.
He said that. Zane said that to make sure what those words mean to you, because every word means specifically different things to people.
Right.
That's a wonderful tool because then you'll know for sure if it's negative or
Right.
positive.
Well, not only that, but there's the energy there.
Oh, a
Before-
lot of
because
energy. They
before
can
I never-
control us without knowing it.
Right, and I never
don't
thought
know.
twice about being on my bicycle before, but now I've got all this energy that I can channel to these great images.
But you might say that, like, use Murphy's Law and say this is the worst that can happen,
Yep.
and then go to the positive side. In a lot of civil circumstances, like a lot of like passive environmental circumstances, but sometimes like the environment gets too dangerous or too much, then you can't really you can't really use Murphy's Law that well because it has the power to overcome you, so you have to really
Right.
stay positive and
Right.
really have that clear all the engrams and have that goal in mind, like of accomplishment,
That powerful,
Exactly.
positive image.
like an
Exactly.
emergency or
And that starts linking up over and over time. That starts linking up your unconscious mind with what you're desiring. It is better to have a certain period of the day set aside to use in the demonstration during which the mind is positively and completely absorbed in the undertaking. If one finds oneself depleted or too tired, it is better to skip the regular period set aside for this work. Because when one's forces are at low ebb, one easily may become negative and permit contrary images to force themselves before the attention. So you want to set like a kind of a ritual and keep doing it. I had a friend that did that wonderfully well with New Year's resolutions, and it worked every time. It was kind of scary. So I'd be like, "Ooh, that stuff works. So I'm gonna be careful what I wish for." But no, she did it on a regular basis. She took out her notebook, and every once a week she'd read her desires for the New Year's resolutions. And by mid-year, she realized that she had gotten
She'd done it.
it was successful. Small little things, but yeah, it was like,
Right.
wow, that works. Oh, wait a minute, did I read this little? This one?
If one
You
No
read-
more stress.
Yeah, no, you read this one.
Okay.
This is
Oh, I was just gonna read this
not
part.
being tired. Oh, I see.
I am
See,
calm.
that's where Murphy's Law would come into play, because if one finds himself depleted or too tired, you would use the aberration of the worst thing that can happen, or like a lower dynamic of a bad thing that can happen,
Exactly.
and make a future plan so you won't be depleted that day.
Right. Great example. Yep. Yep. Alright. After the matter once has been set in motion, it is better not to think about it at all. This is the letting go. Except at such times as there is abundant positive mental energy to direct into the formulated image at the directed time. So he's not saying, there's a letting go point though, when you're looking for
Right.
success. You're trying to demonstrate.
Fourth stage of meditation.
Okay, but that's a big step, because when people don't let it go and they're not manifesting anything or formulating anything, they wonder why. If there is resistance or a feeling of doubt to the thought or image, then this is an indication that the thought cells are not wholeheartedly working from the astral plane to bring the thing to pass. So there might be something in your unconscious that you're not aware of yet. You know, we often come across that where we think we want something, we keep telling ourselves we affirm, we do, and it's still not coming to pass.
Because you might let it go.
That too.
You're so attached to it that you
Right.
can't let it go.
But then there's, even if you do that, sometimes what's happening is there's a contrary image deep in your subconscious that you haven't realized, and that's working against it.
the fear or the whatever.
Right, whatever is contrary that you have forgotten about, and that's when we have to start looking into our unconscious and seeing what's there and what has been contrary and what's stopping our success. You know, if we do all the right steps along the way. I love this picture. Coming out of the Matrix. And then this subheading is, do not instruct the thought cells how to do their work.
I love this. I just find this so comforting. There's some that on some level, I may be smarter than I realize.
When you call for or see a healer, a lawyer, or a plumber, you do not instruct the person how to do their job.
Well,
Right? I know, right? Except the plumber. I'm sure he knows a lot more than I do. The same goes for the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind has so wide a field of information at its command that the thought cells are accustomed to getting results by working from the astral plane. It knows far better what steps to take and how to take them than does your objective mind. Remember, there's two differences, right? Therefore, do not attempt to visualize the steps it must take or give it orders as how it must proceed. To think of intermediate steps for the unconscious to do is to place limitations or modifying clauses upon it, which make the work more difficult. And I have an example of this is when I was in basic training. I think I already gave this example, but I was looking for simple pleasures, and because I was feeling so out of place, basic training, military, whatever. And I remember one night going to bed, and I was like, I just want to just walk in the grass again. And the next day, they lined us up, this little patch of grass, they all gave us trash bags, and we did a walking thing where we were picking up trash. And as I was doing this, I was like, hey, wait, this is what I asked for. But if I had to say, no, I want it to be in this grass at my home, then I would have limited myself. Instead, it happened without me telling it has to be this, it has to be in, when I go back home, it has to, I didn't comprehend that. I had another example, actually. I had my roommate in Hawaii who smoked cigarettes. And we tried every other way to try to have another roommate situation. It wasn't going to work. And so I came to the acceptance she was going to smoke in the room. And then one night I just couldn't take it anymore because I sleep on my back and it was going right. We had everything kind of blocked over, tried to block everything, and I could still. And I just was like pleading, like, okay, I am done. I don't know how this is going to happen or how. All I think of is possibility, but I'm not going to think that. I'm not going to limit myself. I just prayed and said, please do something about this. And if I had to limit it and tell it had to do this, this, and this, I didn't ask for her to quit. I didn't ask for me to get changed. I just said, I need this changed. And when it happened in a week, couldn't believe it, she decided to quit smoking. I go, why? She didn't have a boyfriend. She had no reason. I never complained. She goes, I don't know, it's bad for you. I'm like, yeah, but you knew that before. Like, what all of a sudden changed? She goes, I don't know, just. So she quit for maybe, I think, a couple of weeks. But in that 3 weeks, what she noticed was when people went outside and smoked and they walked back in, she could all of a sudden smell the smoke on them. And she told me this, and she goes, you can just smell it, and it's just on them. I was like, yeah. She goes, oh my God. So on her own volition, she decided to start smoking outside the room. So I did not place any limitation on how it had to happen, or what had to happen, or what happened. You ask for what you ask for and let it work itself out.
To me, I have an objection though to the all or nothingness of this thinking, because there's times when our goal involves many different steps to it.
Yeah.
And even if we conceive of the final picture of what we want to create,
Yeah.
we will be, and even if we let go, periodically we'll be given the next step is to do such and such, or someone will come into our field who offers the next step, and we have to be able to recognize those incremental.
Yeah, you don't have to manipulate it.
Sure.
You just
Right.
accept it, and as long as nothing comes in that prevents it. But I found myself liberated from the last slide and this slide.
Yeah?
But there's
Liberated?
also a certain amount of
Yeah, I
self-motivation.
liberated myself from
Sorry.
the last four paragraphs.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think,
There
and I
can be
think
that
that's,
self-motivation too I find a wonderful question is, what has to happen in order that, or in order to da-da-da-da? Because then I kind of throw it open, and, I don't have preconceived notions necessarily. I want to be fed
Yeah, but
my
you're
next
allowed.
step.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Well, this is kind of along with that, because I think with Zane, it's always you go with that, and I do the same thing, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, but then there's this. And what he does say is that you can give the thought cells as much aid as possible in their work. So I think that's maybe what you're saying is we also want to help ourselves
right.
to be able to get to those goals. And he does say that. If you have a cat, it finds the hypotenuse of the triangle.
there you go.
The Pythagorean cat. So we want to aid the thought cells. The more information available to the unconscious mind, however, relative to the matter to be demonstrated, the more readily it can discern the means by which to bring the condition to pass. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So we do want to help ourselves. Therefore, concentrate the objective mind on gaining a wide field of information as possible in the area to be demonstrated. So we do want to have knowledge in a certain area of what we're looking for success.
Working and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it is health to be demonstrated, study and read as much as possible about hygiene, diet, and the principles upon which a sound constitution must rest. This also gives the unconscious the impetus during sleep, or even at other times, to seek still further information on the astral plane, or to tune in on the minds of those who possess such knowledge, either in this plane or that plane. He does say that. But yeah, so that this, if we want to get healthy, we don't just sit here and go, I want to be healthy. We help ourselves along the way. And we gain knowledge along with the other steps. He does mention that a lot. The individual who undertakes to demonstrate some condition should not set some impossible limitations as to what agents should bring the desired end about. For an example, in the past, France's vineyards were dying of a bacterial disease. Louis Pasteur studied the disease until he knew the nature and the habits of the bacteria causing the disease and was able to stamp the disease out. He did not limit himself to just thinking the disease to be gone or only using current known methods which didn't work at the time. Thus, he was able to demonstrate a great success. In other words, when you're trying to do success, you don't want to just use affirmation and thoughts and desires. You also use everything that's available, even if it's regular physical means, to help yourself get to a goal. Like, don't limit yourself. It can only come through mental praying or affirmation. You take the steps as well, as much as you can physically. to help in your goal. The use of physical agents is an absolute essential to obtaining any desirable conditions. Even the most fanatical follower of the divine power of mind to perform wonders does not abstain from using these purely physical remedies, such as drinking water, eating food, and breathing air to sustain a body. Nor should one who expects to demonstrate money refrain from entering the fields, such as the professions and business, through which money more commonly comes. Chemist, doctor, graduate, Carl Sagan, writer. The Bible relates that Pharaoh commanded the Israelites to make bricks without straw, but the result was not in his favor. Instead of such an attitude, when demonstrating a condition, give the thought cells working from the astral plane every reasonable condition that may be expected to make it easier for them to bring about the desired result. This is from Moses. Scene from Moses.
I've seen Moses there.
Fanaticism in demonstrating.
Gravity is just a gunline.
I love cats. I almost thought this wasn't real. Like, no way. They'd like, you know, what do they call it?
Pounce.
No, I know, but he looked like he was just all relaxed. Like, oh, I'm just going for a pounce here.
All his hair jumped right up in the air. You don't know.
I don't know, it looks like he was going for that other cat. So
He has like no
They're
tension in his
startled.
body though. There's like, it's all relaxed.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. They probably
Weird. But he has a
edited
shadow right there though. There's a shadow.
Oh.
So,
Well, you could put a shadow.
yeah, you can, but I think it probably is real. It's just funny. So, fanaticism in demonstrating. When the impossible is expected of the unconscious mind and it is crowded forcefully into an effort in demonstrating through receiving vigorous and insistent suggestions and affirmations, it frequently offers a substitute. Oh yeah, I remember my substitute. Okay, but I'll give another example. In the book, in the movie came out, Eat, Pray, Love. An example of this is there was a guy, Richard from Texas, that she met when she went to India. And he had told her a story of when he was, you know, he'd gone through all this different alcoholism and truck driver, profession, marriage gone, all these problems. And then, you know, he's coming out of it and he's like, he kept praying for the same thing over and over. God, just give me an open heart and then give me a sign when you've done it for me. And he kept praying. This was his one thing, his one focus. He kept praying. So what happened? His unconscious kept hearing that, and it gave him the sign, all right. He went in for open heart surgery. You have an open heart, and here's your sign. Is that good enough for you? So, you know, if you keep doing it persistently, it'll give you it, but it might not give you what you're expecting.
That's a provocation.
A provocation?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like I have square wheels and they won't go as fast until they reach steps and then they go up the stairs.
Yeah.
But that's a positive provocation.
Okay.
This seems to be a negative one.
Right. Okay, so he goes, an example is when the impossible feat of repressing the drive for race preservation is attempted. The objective mind usually is given the belief that these desires are not present, yet their energy nevertheless escapes through some subversive channel. So delusional substitutes are offered when the demand is too insistent that an impossibility can be performed. So
That's
be careful.
real complex.
Exactly. I think I skipped a lot more out of this.
We could have avoided that.
There's a lot of thought in there.
Right? Now, if you hammer into the unconscious mind any suggestion often enough and with sufficient force, it comes to believe that suggestion. Zane has some examples. Do you want me to read this? An example of this? I actually found it interesting. A real estate man of my acquaintance a year or two ago started using affirmations sent out by a certain school, which was a wide following, to sell properties given into its custody. The school taught that the proper method was to affirm over and over that the desired transaction had been completed. Now, if you hammer into the unconscious mind any suggestion often enough and with sufficient force, it comes to believe that suggestion. In this case, therefore, when the thought cells failed to cause the sale of a given piece of property, or perhaps they never even tried to make it, they nevertheless accepted the suggestion as true. The man believed he had sold the property, told his friends he had sold it, and drew a check on the bank for the money he had obtained from the sale. But as he had no money in the bank and had not made the sale, this led to confinement in psychopathic ward of the convent.
Yeah, that's good.
But what I find fascinating is that there were schools of thought, which I hear, like, I thought it was like the New Age thought, where you just keep affirming the secret is the whole thing. You just, like attracts like, you keep affirming it, you'll believe it, you'll start to believe it, it's real, just do it like it is real, they tell you, just pretend like it already happened. But it was happening in his time, 30s and 40s. It's like, really?
Right.
But at that time it was a little more risky because psychopathic word.
Well, he made his stakes too high. He borrowed money for something that he thought.
Right. He could have told his friends and pretended like he did it, but drawing that bank that check was a little bit
That's
too
common
much.
sense.
Thank you. That's common sense. Yes.
One of the beauties of the Brotherhood of Light lessons is that they very successfully avoid all of that sort of affirmative recklessness,
Right.
and give very detailed and well thought out instructions on self-improvement.
Exactly, and that's one of the things I really like about Zane. He doesn't just say, "Oh, there's that one technique here, just use it over and over again." No, there's all these other things
Yeah,
going
there's
on.
angles to it.
Thank you. Exactly. So in these instances in which the unconscious mind acquires a conviction that something has been demonstrated when it actually has not, does not detract from the legitimate value of suggestion, affirmation, or any other mental method which aid in demonstrating health or anything else, which is advantageous to you. So he's saying that in these cases that I read to you, was obviously common sense was lacking there. But it doesn't mean that doing this, affirming and suggesting to your own self in your own way, has no value. It has great value, and you can do it. You just got to use all the other steps along the way and not just use the one thing and then be stupid about it. It merely, again, emphasizes the danger of a prevalent type of fanaticism which, where religion, psychic matters, or mental power is concerned, refuses to keep in close touch with reality by carefully checking actual results against theoretical considerations. So Zane is pretty practical. I like that about him.
Oh, that's cute.
There's
I
your
think
success.
so, there I am.
That's a perfect picture.
Okay, so to visualize health, hold in the mind as clear a picture as possible of the body in a state of health. To demonstrate a bank account, visualize yourself making repeated deposits in the bank. Or withdrawals. I don't know. That's actually a good way to think of it. Deposits. There you go.
Nice.
Put money in the bank.
Yeah, withdrawals are negative.
Yeah, right.
To demonstrate success as a musician, hold the image of yourself playing the instrument of your choice before a vast and applauding audience. That is, hold before the mind and then energize the end desired. Actually, athletes do that. Gymnasts and stuff, they're finally realizing these principles. And they're told when you're going to do a whole routine in the gymnastics thing, you visualize yourself doing it, everything right, properly. If you visualize like, oh my God, I'm going to fall, there it goes, there's your energy, there's your attention. No, you visualize, and they're realizing that visualization really helps them in success. Of course, they have to do the work and they have to know the thing, but they visualize the success.
What if you can draw very well and
There you
draw
go.
something like making deposits?
Well, that's just a way of adding energy.
There you go.
That the goal is to have something to add energy to, yeah.
Right.
You know, one of my favorite visualizations, speaking of the athletes, is a runner who told of visualizing this huge supportive hand on their back, pushing them up and forward as they ran.
Wow.
That's good.
Isn't that great?
That's interesting.
I like that visualization because we're not just on own power. It gets us beyond thinking that,
Yeah.
we're separate
There you go.
entities, and it connects us with higher power.
The
and
higher powers
help.
help you
Yeah,
along.
right.
That's great. That's a good one. Alright, so man has always used the power of desire to attain a specific end, such as safety, to procure food, to reproduce, to protect offspring, and to do various other things through the action of the thought cells from the astral plane. rather than through the chance survival of individuals which varied slightly from their fellows. You never understand the ending of the sentences sometimes. When man, therefore, sets out to demonstrate success through the use of mental power, he is not employing some new principle. He is employing the same process which mostly has been responsible for the evolutionary advancement of physical life upon the earth. And he's saying that the power of desire, that has gotten you almost everywhere. And when we do the recap, I'm going to talk about desire again, how the energy works.
But you wouldn't use the power of desire I would say concretely, but like you wouldn't use the power of desire as like a real concept. Let's say if you were to have you finally made like $500,000 or like $1 million and put it in the bank, you're not gonna like go out and spend it figuring that you're just gonna rely on this concept. There is something called like a score that you would reach. Just say that so you would keep that score and then work on something else. I mean, you wouldn't want to throw it away just for this. You would want someone to reach a plateau that they would always stay on for the rest of their lives and make a score from this.
So you need other desires to go and look for other goals once you've reached a certain goal, right?
Yeah,
but he's talking about desire energy as an energy source within you because, you know, for me to move my hands, I have to desire to do so. To me to eat, I have to desire to do so. Even as the subconscious little seed of a nugget, it's a desire, it's an energy, and that's what Zane has talked about. So not just desire like, oh, I want that.
There are some examples where people don't desire having money anymore for some reason because they heard something and they gave away all their money.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense because they
they desired that.
Well, they earned it through desire and then they gave it away. And that's not,
fine.
No,
it's their
it's
choice.
not.
Sure it is. Every person
It's
free to do whatever they want.
I don't agree.
Maybe we can't judge that though. You never know what the impact of it is, why another person's doing that.
Yeah.
But it
I
might
think
not feel
that's
good for
that's
you.
one of the reasons why Jesus was crucified, because he said, "Give all your money to enter the kingdom of heaven."
Well, because you can learn a lot without money too.
Yeah, so I'd rather put my money away and then do something else.
Yeah, but see, you have to think about. Yeah, you have to think about
Make it grow.
other people have other things going on in their mind and why they're doing the things they're doing. Just
It's
because you
still-
don't want it doesn't mean another person is incapable and should do it because
It's still not. It's not
You're
a good
judging them,
message.
then.
It's detrimental. It's not good for me that they're doing it.
Well, that's fine.
Because they're gonna like
You know,
contaminate or.
That's your, it's your opinion, but
End up
people
with
can
it.
do whatever they want.
I guess.
Yeah, Bill Gates wasn't giving away all his money.
Sure.
Well, I'm thinking of Peace Pilgrim, who gave away all her money and belongings and set forth on a pilgrimage for the rest of her life.
It's not practical
To
for
walk around
my
and-
ethos.
Why is that?
It's just not. It's not a good idea to conceive of. It's not good.
What about Mother
Well,
Teresa?
if
There's a lot
you
of spiritual
if you
examples.
get to that result, the
Yeah.
end result, and you know, have you ever had a lot of money?
Not a hell of a lot, but
So, but
I would
see,
like to make enough to contribute
Right.
without feeling a
Okay.
tremendous sense of loss.
so I think until you get to that point where you have so much money, you don't know what it feels like to give it all away. There's a whole huge thing.
I don't ever
until-
want to know what it feels like.
Okay, so, but
that's
you know, that's what
okay.
I'm just saying is until you get to that step in your life to understand it, you know, you're just not understanding it, where those people are at to do what they want to do. Anyway, okay, demonstrating. First, a person must determine what it is that she wants. And to apply the principle, she must cultivate directed thinking so that she can hold her mind to the images she wants to realize without permitting fantasy creations to intrude. And I used she in there specifically to see how it looks differently when you're using he and she, right? Did it kind of set something
like
off?
it. Oh, yeah.
Did everybody kind of go, wait, what's wrong with this picture?
No, I was, what's right with this?
But see how different it feels Even though we
For
say
sure.
that him means everybody, man means everybody, it does feel different when we say she. Doesn't it?
Well, it's a
that
great relief
consciousness.
after hearing so much heat.
Oh, right? Because
Like
men are
such a
getting blamed for
pleasant
everything.
change.
Isn't it better for the goal to say that you're going to hold on to your money when you make it the other
If you
desire?
want to hold on to your money when you get a lot of money, go for it.
Yeah, and I have a desire.
If somebody tells you you should get rid of it and you say no, then, do what you want. Right?
Yeah.
When you get to that end result.
That should be the idea for everybody. It should
Why?
be-
Why are you setting the rules for everybody?
Because any deviation from it is bad.
That's in your opinion, though.
You're
Do
not
you
a
not see that?
Well, I can be like, I could like have my own communist village. Be like,
When you get rich enough to support your own communism.
Does everybody understand that you first have to know what it is you want? You want money. And then here are the steps. You must cultivate directed thinking. Then you have to hold those images, and then without having fantasy creations to intrude. So those are some steps to getting. And then the other thing I want to write: attention, intent, energy leads to the keys to success.
There you go.
Through directed thinking, one must learn how to direct and condition their desires, so that the desire energy will be directed into the channel of one's choosing. Persistently directed desire is commonly called the power of will. Look at this, there's a book called The Power of Will.
Yes, there is.
Well, that's
Who's-
like
who's the
Norman
author? I can't
Vincent
read it.
Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking
Right.
from the
I have it.
early 50s.
I can't read
Yeah.
Who is the author?
It's probably one of those authors from back in the 30s again.
Yeah, because it looks like one of those older books.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, oh,
That's
cool.
very interesting.
And I know who the author is, and I just can't think of
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah.
David Bowie?
No.
No, he's just pointing
We've got
Power
the
of
book.
Will, and she's
Well,
looking
yeah,
at
we
Power
got the
of Will.
book.
We have
It's
that book.
Kay
Oh, you
Packer
do?
gave it to us, and I can't think
Oh.
of the guy's name.
Was it written in the 30s and 40s?
Yeah.
Can you read it off the screen?
But-
No, we
No.
can't. No, it's.
All right.
Oh,
Anyway, we're almost at the recap point, so we'll get through that a lot. We often arrive at a certain level of physical performance or a mental output and stick there. No matter how much you play golf or bridge or tennis or how much you talk, you may not improve your technique. And I put in the word talk, he said walk. Because I think we can learn how to improve our talking ability. I've had a study of this myself. This is because there has not been sufficient directed desire and directed thinking applied to learning how to do these things better, or to doing more important things better. Merely through striving to do so, directed desire energy, accompanied by effort in the practice, that's the action, the ordinary person can double the speed with which he reads in about 6 weeks. And there's your successful end result. He's just giving an example. But in anything that you want to do better, and even I say in even talk, I learned how to tell stories better, quicker, with less detail. But I did that because I had to consciously think of it. So anything that you want to do better, anything under the sun that you want to do better, you just take these steps and you will get better at it.
I think our education system has kind of lost that. I don't know. I mean, I may
Perfect example.
be wrong, but kids used to be challenged more than they are now to
Right.
do things that were hard.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I totally agree.
And you learn that you can do things that are not easy by focusing and directing your attention on it.
Absolutely.
But, that's just a little editorial.
This is an example, spinning wool. Let me give you an example here. To learn to do something better, you must think about it. When you have done poorly, try to discern just what led to poor performance. When you have done better than your average, recall just how you felt and just what you did that was different. Then strive hard to reproduce that which led to better work. Okay, I learned this example, just what you were saying. And I gave all this because my mother taught me this a couple years ago. So she had showed me these 3 things of spun wool. She was learning how to spin wool. And she dyed them in Kool-Aid. And there was like 3 different little strings of wool. And there's one on the end that looked all clumpy and weird. And I was like, what the heck happened there? And she displayed these things of wool. And I asked her, I said, what happened here? She goes, well, Yvette, that was my first thing. I was learning how to do it. And she did it like as if it doesn't matter, you know, I have better wool here. That was my purse. And she's totally accepting of it. And it made me realize, oh my God, that's right. Everything that we do, we have to learn how to do it first. The first time you start it seems simple. I have a niece who was, 11 years old, and every time she gets in the swimming pool, because she doesn't go swimming, I can't do it. I don't know how to swim. I'm like, because you got to learn. But that's what you're saying. Children today aren't taught. You do have to learn. There's steps to do it. You can't just go jump in the water. Oh, you know how to swim. Then we have to learn.
There's a saying that I've heard many times, and others have too. If you think you can, you can.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you can't, you're right.
If you really discourage a kid
Yeah.
from showing off that you can do it perfectly, it's very discouraging for a kid.
Right,
Yeah.
for seeing a kid that can do everything and another kid that can't.
Yeah, if a kid sees that someone can do something perfectly, he
Yes.
could be very discouraged from doing the thing at all. Drop it, give it up, and do something else.
I know.
Play
Or
video games.
inspired.
That happens all the
Or
time.
inspired.
And you know why? Is
No.
because he didn't see the kid practicing every
Yeah.
day after school, working hard to do that thing he did. He might have had an initial talent, but then he kept working at it and he got better. And the kid that just sees the end result is going, wow, he can do it, I can't, I'm not
Yeah.
going to try. And that's exactly what the problem is.
That's
And that's what I was trying to show, that
Would you call that understanding? What would you
Yeah.
use understanding?
learn that you have to learn how to do something. You're not going to be able to do something no matter what. You might have an initial skill to be able to do something, maybe play music or draw or
You're like
something.
talented. I'm not
But
talented.
then you have to keep up with it, and you have to keep doing it. Otherwise, it'll just go late, and you're not going to be good at it.
One of the biggest things I've found with artists or people who are doing something like that is they are their own worst enemy, because they are so self-critical
Yeah.
of what they do
Yeah.
that they think they compare themselves to somebody else and they think they can't do it good enough.
I've left things for a long time and it's never been back.
Alright, so the unconscious mind learns to do things properly through seeing the correct procedure in one's imagination. So, and I had a kid falling off his bike. We don't come out of the womb know how to ride a bike. We have to learn, we have to fall a few times.
You gotta make sure that he gets on that bike and he keeps doing it. Make sure he doesn't
Exactly.
give up.
Exactly. And that can be applied to anything you want to do in life.
Right.
To demonstrate success, first have a clear-cut image of just what it is that you wish to accomplish. Then furnish the unconscious mind with as much information as possible about the thing. Books. I love books. Or you talking to other people. Permit the unconscious to use whatever physical channels are available to bring its realization about. Give the unconscious mind no instructions as to the details by which the end result shall be brought to pass. Only
I like
to
that
aid it.
picture. Unconscious, use whatever channels. All the channels.
Then positively and confidently direct as much desired energy into this image as can be made available. And this says, energy flows where attention goes. What's your attention focused on?
What was
Success.
Could I ask you to recap number 4? No instructions, thank you. Okay.
Right. Don't give it a
That's
detailed
good.
list of
Yeah.
everything it
Don't
has to do.
micromanage.
Yeah, that's right. Good example. Don't micromanage. Can help it out, but you don't need to micromanage.
Okay.
And number 6, finally be willing to work for that something, and always be willing to render to society adequate recompense for what is received from society. Building bridges with your money. I don't know. Helping everybody out. Okay, so now we're going to do recap. This is kind of puts everything together of all the chapters. Well, no, I don't know. All the chapters started repeating after chapter 4, so it's kind of a condensed version, but it started to make all sense here. But I really like this. It is only a thought, and a thought can be changed. Remember that. You're thinking in the depths of despair, change it. The eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend.
Boy, that's so true.
Isn't it? You're not ready to see it, you're not going to see it.
Would someone have the ability to nullify their thoughts so they can focus on others? not just like totally
I don't know.
delete
You
it.
can direct, you can,
Maybe.
I don't know what nullify means, but you can
Like-
give less energy to some
Yeah.
thoughts
Yes.
and more energy to a thought that you prefer or
Yeah.
desire.
Yes.
That's a great
absolutely.
capability.
Yep, that's wonderful. That's exactly, I think, what he's trying to say. Okay, so this is a recap. This is from chapter 1. Objective consciousness equals the objective mind, which is the conscious mind. This is in Zane's wordings. Is when the intelligence examines, compares, relates, and decides issues among other functions in the brain. The objective mind was developed through evolution to take care of new situations. The soul equals the mind, is the unconscious, is the character. All connect up with the physical brain to express as the objective conscious mind.
What?
A lot more than
Go
that.
back, say, soul, mind, unconscious, and character connect with the physical brain to express as the objective conscious mind. Okay.
But I think the objective conscious mind is only a sliver of soul, mind, unconscious, and character.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like putting a
yeah,
force
yeah,
field
right.
around
That
everything,
is- yeah.
and so you
Right.
can use them.
Yeah.
But they are components of what
Yes.
objective conscious mind
Right.
This is what the underneath the iceberg. This is what you see in the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. When the unconscious mind is able to impart energy from the thought cells to the physical nervous system, which then creates vibrations in the physical brain cells and can then be recognized, is called objective consciousness. So again, energy, the etheric energy has to connect up so you can recognize the thoughts. Objective consciousness has its important and special functions to perform in life, but it cannot be considered a different mind than the unconscious mind. It's all inclusive, right? Subjective mind is the unconscious mind, it's the subconscious. And this is in Zane's terminology when he writes in his books. Existing in the mind, but not immediately available to the consciousness, free from self-awareness. The experiences in the bodies of all life forms are retained in the thought cells and thought structures of the unconscious mind. The mind equals the soul, the unconscious mind is the character. There is an intermediate state of consciousness, however, by which by definite associations with the objective consciousness and the unconscious mind, brings about their combination, which goes into the steering direction of the objective mind. So there's things that are coming up from the unconscious. There, I guess he's talking about an intermediate state that kind of direct where your objective mind goes. The soul. Does that make sense?
Well, would that be like, I had a dream the other night about my husband that passed away 16 years ago.
Exactly.
And I kept thinking about that dream. Why did that for 16 years? And I know periodically I've dreamt about him. So I'm sitting here looking at the calendar and I'm thinking, oh my God, he died August 25th in 1994, and it was the day after I had a dream about him. And I'm thinking, does this happen every year and I'm not aware that I don't put it together?
There's some unconscious anniversary clock that really,
Yes, and I think
yeah, people often report similar things when
Yeah.
they just weren't
right.
cognizant that it was.
Yeah,
an
after 16
anniversary.
years, I kind of forget about it, you know. I didn't think
Sometimes
about
you
date,
can track your dreams
but it
and
was
see,
in there.
It's still there.
It's the
isn't it?
unconscious
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
through.
And you can even, if you look at the dream imagery, sometimes you can even see that the relationship has continued to grow and change and evolve after that person died.
I've learned to track a series of my dreams.
Yeah, that's
A
so
lot.
useful.
I don't doubt that it's one thing I don't lack.
He mentions dreams as a tool, but
Yeah.
he doesn't talk much about incubating dreams, about, going to sleep with a well-formulated question
I have
or
no
image.
deficiency.
But Laura, have you read much of Zane?
No,
Well,
not
then
enough.
you don't. Then maybe he
I'm
does.
just talking about what
Okay.
we've discussed it when I'm here.
Okay. Well, he kind of does go into.
He does
dreams,
go into
yes.
dreams, yeah.
And they're pretty important. So.
Yeah, and
so
I've
he
heard him
does.
acknowledge that in the astrological signs and everything as well.
Yeah.
But I just hadn't, this directed thinking thing can be applied to directing the activity of our unconscious toward communicating with our objective mind.
Yeah. That's a great example. Yeah. So the soul functions through a form on whatever plane of existence it is located on. The initial work of the soul on any plane is to make proper adaptations to the environment of that plane. Such adaptations are needed not only for survival on that plane, but also to learn how to include activities for the realization of various desires. The environment outside the body has various stimuli whose impact affects the body and is felt by the soul mind as experiences. After any particular experience, both the body and the soul is not the same as it was before the experience, no matter how small the experience. Something is added to the soul by every experience the soul undergoes. Because every experience, whatever its nature, is accompanied by a sense of pain or pleasure to some degree, even though it may or may not be clearly defined as pleasure or pain.
I mean, I could say, yeah, I guess.
Right. Law of correspondences is the relation between entities and stellar positions. Like the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. As in outer space, the macrocosm, so also in the smallest atom, microcosm. Every soul is called into existence to fill a definite cosmic need. Tell this is total recap. here's my drawing. So I did this in the first class, which I didn't have a PowerPoint presentation. But in Zane's terminology, he uses the sixth dimensional realm is the celestial realm, which we don't really know anything much about. The fifth dimensional realm is the spiritual realm. The fourth dimensional realm is the astral realm. And the three-dimensional realm is the physical plane, which we are located on. And I drew it as a circle because I wanted to say how incorporated it is. It's not like one side or the other. It's all inclusive. Like when you turn 70 years old, like Lauren today, it doesn't mean 30 is gone. It's all incorporated. All those years of ages are incorporated. Just because he's not 30 now doesn't mean it's not all inclusive. He has all that experience, all that knowledge.
Well, it's like 1994, August 25th,
Right.
it's not gone.
Right,
exactly.
not.
Yeah. It's all inclusive.
Yeah.
Yvette,
Yes.
can we go back one screen to your drawing there? And we spoke earlier in Vega's class about the ethereal body,
Yep.
magnetic body.
Yeah, I got that too. Go ahead.
She does a good job with this.
Yeah.
Would you show Tony where that
You want some-
is, or where it would be?
It would be in the boundary between the physical and the astral. It would be in this red boundary line is the etheric.
He's writing something down.
Okay.
Which one?
The etheric body, see this is the physical world and this is the astral in the blue. This boundary line energy is where the etheric energy is, etheric energy body be, in that red. It's the boundary between the astral and the physical. But I kind of put it in here.
Would science play an important role in this boundary?
Yes, actually it does. The
Science
physical,
may not acknowledge it though.
It does actually. It just calls it by a different word. It calls it electromagnetic. In the physical, of or pertaining to the body, the properties of matter and energy, that which is material. The etheric, which is that boundary between the two, a hypothetical substance once supposed to occupy all space, postulated to account for the propagation of electromagnetic radiation through space. That was in the dictionary. In other words, I think they used to call it ether, now they're just calling it electromagnetic. It sounds more scientific. They feel like they understand that more. It's
But
boundary
these
lines.
are theories and not laws.
Exactly. But I did find the word ethereal in the dictionary, and this is what it gave me. So that is an actual dictionary word.
If they're theories, do you think that they have legitimacy to be taught, being that they may be valid most of the time, but not all of the time?
Yes,
So that means
exactly.
that there's a level of objectivity the students must have
Exactly.
in taking in this information.
Exactly. I want you to have as much objectivity as you want on any of this information. It is C.C. Zane's book, and that's what I'm teaching. And I absolutely would love you to have objective understanding.
Critical
of
analysis of what
Yeah,
you do.
take from it what you want and leave alone what doesn't make sense for you.
That's
Well,
correct.
Totally cool with that.
So that particular one's no longer theoretic. It's been proven since the 1930s.
Right. So I honestly believe it is the electromagnetic radiation, and it's just that's what they're using now. They just
There's a book called Chaos Magic, and if you type in Chaos Magic on YouTube, you will see a guy wearing a mask giving a presentation on on chaos magic and how it works.
So we're almost done here. We just got a few more slides. I'm just going to kind of get through here. Astral, of or pertaining to, proceeding from the stars, stellar. Spiritual, of or pertaining to, consisting of spirit and corporal. The etheric body. The etheric body is an energy transfer body. It is made of electromagnetic boundary line energy, where energies approach the speed of light. That's scientific. It is the body closest to the physical body and interpenetrates the physical body and the astral body, but only into the astral body for a short period of time, only for energy transfer. So it is the conductor between the astral, which is where our thoughts reside, and the physical, where our physical brain resides. And for the thoughts to come from our unconscious, which is on the astral, into our conscious objectiveness, we need the etheric energy.
Which is kind of what Vega was talking about this morning with the Uranian energy, that
yes.
it comes and it
How wonderful
goes,
is that?
it pulses.
I appreciate
We
it.
have electromagnetic all through around us.
I appreciate take what you want and leave the rest. I appreciate that.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do that myself with everything I'm going to do.
That's a healthy body, healthy body mind.
Healthy body mind, yeah. The astral body is the body on the other side of the electromagnetism, past the speed of light. Your astral body is made up of both your thoughts and your feelings. Your thoughts and feelings are recorded and stored in your mind, your soul, your unconscious mind, the astral body. Your astral body connects with your physical body through the etheric energy transfer body. What makes up the bodies? Chemical elements are what makes up the physical body, just as thought elements go into making up the astral body. The physical body is made up of physical cells. Physical cells that are the same and have the same function form into groups that go into making up the physical structures, which we call the organs of the body. The astral body is made up of astral cells. Astral cells are made up of thoughts, which we call thought cells of the astral body. And similar thought cells combine together to form thought structures, just like the organs of the body. So you can think of it as the astral body is made up of astral cells, which are made up of thoughts and feelings, which go in, and then they form structures when there's enough thoughts and feelings in one area compartment, and they form a structure. Think of it like that. Starts to make sense, huh? Wonderful.
I missed a lot. I should have come in with something.
But so you're getting a nice briefing, recap.
I'm really getting a lot of understanding of these words.
Yeah.
There you go. Physical cell. Okay, this is, I kind of did a thing on one of my past things, so I'm just going to...
Mitochondria?
Mitochondria is where DNA is located inside physical cells. The equivalent on the astrology of the birth chart is like the DNA. This is my idea, I guess it's part of Zine stuff. It's a genetic map of the previous soul's experiences in the stellar cells of the astral body. The genetic material is where your physical looks and other characteristics of you come in. The astrology of the birth chart tells us where our soul characteristics come from, previous soul experiences.
I wanted to
Genetic material can express in many different ways, and genetic potential or genetic diseases can be changed or modified by life choices and experiences, right? Mm-hmm. You have the potential to have cancer because your genes say, but because of what you choose to do in your life, you don't have to get cancer. So the astrology of the birth chart can be expressed in many different ways, and the astrological potential or obstacles can be changed or modified by the attitudes of a person has about the experiences that come into the life mapped by the progressions of transit. So your birth chart is what you start out with, but progressions change and everything, but you work in your life and you can modify potential, either potentialities or obstacles that come into your life. Again, to recap, we're going through this fast, but bear with me. Experiences are thought elements. The conditions present, emotions, and the thought processes that go on during an experience are organized into a definite pattern which form thought cells. Thought cells that are alike combine together and form thought structures, which organize and arrange themselves and make up the astral body. The astral body is the thought-built body.
Cool.
The three irresistible and hereditary drives. The first is drive for significance, or desire for significance, or the will to power. The drive for race preservation are the reproductive desires, and the drive for self-preservation are the nutritive desires.
Race preservation.
Yes.
The energy of the spiritual ego is striving to realize its functions. Can we? Oh, sorry.
Let's keep going.
I
She's
just want
trying
to get through
this.
The energy of the spiritual ego is striving to realize its function in the cosmic plan for which it is called into existence. This urge to fill the ego's blueprint manifests in all life forms as the struggle to survive and to be something. This urge, the struggle to survive and to be something, is the oldest and strongest urge, and it's the desire for significance. The drive for significance gives rise to two primeval desires of opposite polarity, the reproductive desires and the nutritive desires. These primeval desires are not thought elements, but they are a still more primitive factor of which all thought elements are built upon. Like this. An illustration of this energy of the three hereditary drives is like the energy exerted by a magnet on iron filings. Place iron filings on a plate of glass and they lay there listless heap, like thought elements within the unconscious mind when unaffected by desire. Ooh, getting dizzy and reading too fast. But put a horseshoe magnet under the glass and all is changed. The filings leap into definite and beautiful designs and follow all movements of the magnet. Desire energy is like the magnet, which is responsible for all movement, all change of pattern, and all new combinations of mental factors within the unconscious mind.
So it's polar.
Kind of, yes. Reproductive desires is positive polarity, like North Magnet. Desire and attains significance through expression outside of self. It manifests as a tendency to perpetuate the race or in the desire to perform some creative work. Nutritive desire is negative polarity, like the South Pole on the magnet. Desire and attains significance through adding something to the self. It manifests as giving rise to all those activities that go towards self-preservation, which in turn gives opportunity for significance. So, and then the combinations of these three give rise to all these are just the 10 planets. And this example is kind of like a magnet going through the energies, gives you your birth chart. I don't know. He goes into that. I'm not going to go into that.
The use of a magnet is very good.
Okay.
It's
Well,
like
it kind of gives you an example, a desire
for
to do that.
reproduction.
Right.
Yes,
Right,
and it has a drive for significance, the basics, and then you have your polarity.
This is the first time that I've ever seen anything like this, but I knew many, many years ago, I said to myself, there are two primal survival techniques in human beings. One is the survival of self, and the other is survival of the species,
Exactly.
which is sex and eating food.
That's
and
right.
drinking water.
And he
And I've
divided
never
it up.
seen it anyplace else.
And you just do it intuitively.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so we're almost done, and we probably have 5 minutes to discuss everything, so
Okay.
let's get through it. Symbols are used as the words of our language, and the oldest language is the language of feeling. The unconscious mind uses feeling to receive information from the sense organs of the body and to communicate orders back to the body. That which is felt is stored as a thought element in the thought cells of the unconscious mind. Symbols are much more easily handled by the unconscious mind. Consequently, when the unconscious mind strives to communicate with objective consciousness, it may make use of feeling and or symbols. Inspiration, next exit. Feelings impart information to the unconscious mind, which conditions the future conduct. Feeling is the means by which the unconscious mind communicates its desires to the physical body. A feeling energizes a conceptual response to a stimulus. There are just three feelings, the pleasant one, the unpleasant one, and the neutral one, and rarely are feelings neutral. But they are a little bit different from emotions, according to this. Emotion is generated when feelings united with the mind. Emotion is the activity of feeling directed into a mental concept. Emotions arise in the unconscious mind of every form of the soul took on in the reaction to the conditions of the environment. Emotions are intense feelings arising from release of high-tension desire energy. Now we're going to get into desire energy. Without desire, there is no activity. Activity is the expression of desire. All action, in fact, is due to desire energy being released. Desire can find expression not merely in physical activity, but also in mental activity as well. Think of desire as an energy that is stored in the thought cells and thought structures of the astral body, building up tension, waiting for the potential energy, stored energy, to be released and become kinetic active energy. Imagine this is a coiled spring that is always under tension, waiting to be released. If a particular desire is completely realized in the daily life, it has then found satisfaction and released its desire energy. When action results from a desire, then the energy has been released from its potential state and into the active state. The energy is used up in the action, and this releases attention, consequently desire. Physical action, however, is governed by the proper amount of restraint. If restraint does not dispose of the, but restraint does not dispose of the energy. So if you have that desire, you have restraint not to do it if it's not acceptable. But just because it prevents the energy under tension from breaking through and turning into action. If a desire is not able to release its energies in physical action, then the energies can be released in finding an imaginary realization. But if desire energy is released in some imaginary way, then that energy has been drained without getting concrete results. The individual who finds great pleasure in the imaginary accomplishment to that extent decreases the energy at his command for actual accomplishment. But you can use that if, you need to though. When the thought cells stored desire energies eventually find their expression through the release of their energy, the attention becomes focused in that direction of the desire energy. Two things tend to attract one's attention: physical stimuli and desire energy. This type of attention is called spontaneous attention because it was not decided beforehand to focus the attention on any specific thing. Somebody pricks your arm with a pin, your spontaneous attention. Whoa, what is that? The attention is drawn to a sensation, object, or mental process through the energy of that sensation, perception, or mental process. Directed attention is the attention that is focused in the manner decided upon after a selective appraisal of various possibilities in spite of other distractions. Directed thinking is thinking with the attention directed by volition, the act of your choosing. This type of thinking quickly uses up energy. In other words, there is no harder work in the world and none more useful than directed thinking. The amount of activity expressed is determined by the amount of desire built up within the associated thought cells. The type of activity expressed is determined by the type of desire built up in the thought cells. The activity that actually happens is determined by the manner in which the desire has been conditioned. Conditioning energy is feeling energy, pleasurable, painful. The release of the energy of any desire gives rise to feelings because every desire also contains conditioning energy or feeling. And because feeling accompanies every experience, an organism becomes conditioned when similar experiences happen in the future. Feeling is conditioning energy. Conditioning energy, various degrees and type of quality of pleasure or pain. And this conditioning energy accompanies all feeling, and all feeling accompanies every experience. In general, the conditioning produced by pain tends toward repulsion. Conditioning produced by pleasure tends towards attraction. Of all the processes of the human mind and body, there is none more important fully to understand than that of conditioning, because all progress and all regress are a result of conditioning. He makes bold statements.
That's Pavlov.
A process of learning by which experiences that are added to the soul determine how the organism will act in the presence of the same stimulus in the future. To accustom something to a state of being. Conditioning is to establish a conditioned response in the subject. Pavlov stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Each experience adds to the conditioning energy to the thought cells of the astral body. Experience can be awareness of an external condition, a physical action taken, or a thought. Willpower is nothing more than or less than persistently directed desire. There is a dominant desire to live and survive in life, and everything else is subservient desire. The one great goal or passion for a person must enlist all of his or her lesser desires toward that goal or passion. So you have the normal desires to live and eat and procreate, and then everything else is secondary. The greatest problem confronting every human life is that intensifying the desires and directing them into the most beneficial and effective channels. It is the function of wisdom to decide the direction in which life should move. What one should do so that their actions may be controlled by wisdom instead of by blind impulse is to properly train their feelings. When the feelings are properly conditioned, a person's actions will take the proper course as a result of the operation of this natural law. What the thought cells' desires are and how they release their energies are determined by the conditioning of past experiences. Therefore, if we are to get these desire energies of the thought cells to flow into more acceptable inner plane channels of expression, we must recondition the thought cells. To contribute one's utmost to universal welfare, an individual must develop their abilities to the highest extent possible and must use these abilities under favorable circumstances.
Oh, this is the end.
Ooh, that was kind of strange.
Wow.
Did you ever get that?
You were asking a question about racial, how that word was being used.
Yeah, well, maybe I had the wrong idea as far as his presentation was concerned.
I think he uses it in the context of the human race.
Right.
Yeah. The human race.
It's
Oh,
not
the
the
preservation of the race.
Maybe,
Yes.
maybe the layman would take it differently.
Right? See,
No,
that's
he's-
what
he's
he's
talking about the
that's
sex
whole
drive.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
The need to
Preservation of the race.
Right.
Yeah.
Human
Yeah.
race.
It means society, the
Right.
whole of the species.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
human species is, I think, what he's talking about.
But I mean, every animal has that desire. Every foliage,
Absolutely.
piece of foliage has within it the desire to create.
Yeah, and you don't
Right.
need to
survive,
be
keep
aware of
going
it.
on.
Right.
Yeah, it's just there.
Well,
It's
you
like
know
that.
what I found interesting, the first year we lived where we are now, we had these trees, and this tree produced, it was just covered in seeds.
Mhm.
And we had an arborist out to discuss what was going on with our trees, and I inquired about, why does this tree have so many seeds on it? And he said, that tree feels threatened.
Yes.
And so its natural desire and behavior is to reproduce itself
That's a
and make as
tree.
many seeds as it
Human
can.
beings want seclusion and they don't want to feel threatened, so they build
Well, then
shelter.
they're like
And the
society
one who
as well.
has the most seclusion and shelter is liable to produce the more offspring.
No.
But that's not happening in the world today. Now we have we're poor, low economically
People.
tenable people that are reproducing more.
Well, see, that goes along with her theory, actually, because once you actually, they just have to study this, and they said that people nowadays that have more money and people are not having the babies. The people that are having the babies more prevalently are the people, and so that goes along with your tree theory. They aren't as people,
They're
people
not
in
as
Africa.
secure.
Exactly, they are
need
not
the
as
kids to
secure.
work in the field
The
and take
children
care
are
of
the-
them as old
Exactly.
folks.
Like
But
they
there's so
didn't,
many
they
of them
didn't live
died
for no
before they
reason.
died.
They have children to live for a hope or
Maybe
a
they
dream.
have less to
All right.
lose, and someone is rich have more to lose. I guess.
Before we end, I want to ask a question a couple of slides back. I think it was 104. There was a sentence I didn't understand the way it was written. One great goal or passion for a person must enlist all of his or her lesser desires toward that goal or passion.
Lesser desires than the dominant desire, the will to survive, race preservation, nutritive desires. So, okay, so after you have all those significance, all that, then whatever else you have a desire for, a goal, then you have to take all your other kind of desire energy to work towards that goal if you want it that strongly, that hardly. You know,
Are you
I think that's
saying
what
you
he's
try to
saying.
channel your energy into the what? We're talking about having a great goal or passion.
Right.
So then you're saying in order to achieve that great goal or passion, it might help to enlist the lesser instead of scattering yourself all
Exactly.
around, you focus your energy.
Right,
Right.
right.
On
You
the-
want to become,
I think that
actors
might-
do this all the
Does that
time.
make sense?
Well,
They're at the bottom of the barrel, they have no other, they don't want to do anything else, even though they're living in the car, they're barely eating.
yeah, is it
They want to be an
feasible-
actor, all that desire is going towards that, and they don't care of anything else, they go to that, and they end up becoming great actors.
Is it
and
reasonable?
very famous.
Is it reasonable to sacrifice what you need, let's say on Maslow's hierarchy, to reach a desired goal or path?
It depends. I think everybody's different. I think you can sometimes, and sometimes you need to fulfill those needs first before you go to the higher.
Yeah.
I think some people, though, can fulfill
Well, that's
great,
like-
wonderful things without,
That's like that
Being
boy you
hungry.
were talking about
Yeah.
from Eritrea,
yeah.
who his goal was to be educated, learn English, and come to America. And
He
he
didn't
would
have-
give up eating to achieve
order to-
that goal.
yeah.
Do we want to see if there's any questions from a thought
Yeah.
before we end?
A thought, a good.
Well, Alice Marie said, Yvette, you did a stellar job with some very complex material.
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
That
And you made it fun.
was my to make it plain and go
Oh,
fast
yes.
at the end.
I
So-
know.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry I didn't
That's
live
great.
closer and couldn't
I
come
know.
every week.
That's great.
This would have been-
Yeah.
This all really recapped for me right at the end here, though, when I
You know,
went
you
through.
put this on a
Oh.
CD
Everything
ROM,
together,
can't
it's
you
like
put
the,
this on a CD that I
the
can put in my
biological-
TV?
Sure.
And listen to a CD.
The one of the cell you put something in the mitochondria as DNA.
Yeah.
The mitochondria produces ATP, it takes in oxygen,
Okay.
and then it creates pyruvate.
Oh, you mean to put it on your
Your
TV?
body
Yeah,
uses
your
for
CD
energy,
player.
for all every function.
Yeah.
I don't have a computer.
Right. But it is where the DNA is located, correct?
It's not. It's located in the nucleus.
Probably depends on what kind of.
So-
Mitochondrial DNA, and then
Mitochondria.
there's two types. Yeah, there's RNA and DNA, right?
Well, there's DNA located in the nucleus. Then there's RNA produced by the RNA transcriptase that the DNA produces, and then that RNA is used to create proteins
Right.
from amino acids. And the proteins are used as enzymes to carry out the function of the cell. And this is done by ATP that's created from the mitochondria. So I encourage people to take biology.
Yes, definitely. See, learn as much as you can.
I
Do you
don't
wanna
know
say
that much
bye?
about biology. but
Bye,
I-
thank you all for staying with me.
I had a couple of comments that we blew by.
We're some
Who did?
first.
Who had a comment? Who had a comment?
Renee
What
had
did she say? Oh, did,
the comments that we kind of,
Oh.
I didn't get in there in
Oh,
time.
I'm sorry, Renee. I'm so glad you stayed with me with all this. I feel like I know you, and I don't. I know you all.
So.
Bye, Tony.